Welcome back, friends, family members. So, when I'm teaching in a classroom setting, I am speaking to the children and I'm also allowing them to see what I'm setting the stage for what a family setting might look like. If that is my homeroom class, I am the mom because they're going to spend more time with me. Every other teacher is going to be an aunt or an uncle, okay? When I set up the classroom like this, or when I set the tone, I'm setting it in this direction so that children know what a family should look like, should feel like, because we're not going to be disrespectful to our moms, so we're not going to be disrespectful to our aunts or our uncles. I set it up this way because in our society, people sometimes have not grown up in a family setting, so they don't know what that looks like. Now, some of us might look at that and say, oh, everybody knows what it looks like. No, they don't. You have a lot of children who come into broken families. They're born in broken families. And when they're born into a broken family, it might not be a healthy family either. So they don't know what it looks like. They don't know what it feels like. When they have a problem, they might have to come back to their homeroom teacher. That's mom. That's home base. So when they come back to me, and I hear the problem, or I know the problem, and I've heard it from a few of the teachers. I'm now waiting to hear it from my student, my child. That child is mine while they're in my classroom. I am taking on this responsibility because I do have to make sure that I take on the responsibility, feel the issues through, understand it, and then be able to present it to the family that that child lives in, the home with, resides with. When we set it up like this, we are looking at this child as our own. We're not going to mistreat this child. We're going to treat this child as they are our own, meaning we're going to love them, we're going to support them, we're going to listen to them when they come to us. Now, when you set things up like this, okay, anything that goes on in the classroom, in another person's classroom, is coming back home. And when it comes back home, we need to have a discussion. If it affects more than just that one student, we are going to have a clean house, meaning that meeting is going to take place with that full class and we're going to have that talk. I taught for years in different settings, different states, and I found that this has worked for me. Now, I don't know, a lot of new teachers coming into this field, they don't know what it feels like sometimes. I didn't know what it felt like when I first started. When I first started, I just really wanted a job. Teaching found me. It was recommended by an extended friend of the family who actually spoke to me about it and said, why don't you try to teach? Why don't you, they're hiring. And when I went in, I thought it was going to be something totally different. I had no idea that my heart would be wrapped into such a field. I had no idea that I would have to come up with more of me. I had a guy I was dating at the time, and he said, those are not your children, those are not your kids. And he used to get very upset with me because I spent more time in that classroom than I did at home. I invested time and energy. When God gives you a job to do, your job is to go and do it. Now, how you do it, you have to have heart. You have to place yourself in it. And you have to see that child as you. Think about it. If you did not have good teachers in your life, if you didn't have someone who invested in you, where would you be today? And even if you're not at your most successful position, that child, that student relationship teaches so much. When you have someone who cares about what you do, when you have someone who listens to you when you speak, when you have someone who is supportive of you and knows that you can do better and gives you that necessary push, that means something. That is something that a lot of classrooms do not have in some areas. A lot of teachers are coming into the field, and sometimes they're just coming in for money. But you know what? God has a better answer. And God is going to set the record straight and balance things out because that's what God does. If you have a teacher in the classroom who is mistreating the children, it's going to balance out later on because God is going to show her the way. we don't necessarily know what, some of us don't know, excuse me, what our job is on this planet. We don't know what we're supposed to be doing, and we need to pray and ask for guidance. But we also need to ask for guidance in everything that we do, even in relationships. Your relationship with your principal is important, just like your relationship with your custodian is important. I found that my custodian was one of the best examples, because if something went wrong, a plumbing issue, a issue with a rodent, whatever, I had to contact my custodian, and my custodian was the one who fixed it. Your relationship with your principal extends to parents. Your principal wants to know that you're going to do the right thing so that they don't have to step into the classroom. They want to be able to handle the other things, because the other things are important as well. Each position is important. But as a family, if you talk to the children and you speak to them in regards to everyone being a family member, you're going to find more support. You're going to see that that child is not going to act out in certain ways that they might if you did not explain things. That child is going to act out in certain ways if you do not explain it, and if you do not show through your actions, reflecting back to the classroom, reflecting what a family looks like, even sharing more of you, sharing some of your stories of growing up and how things might not be as easy when you get out of school. So why not study today? I really do wish, that I took language more seriously when I was in high school. But I even wish that I had spent more time in my architectural designs as well as my blueprints. Because when I look at blueprints today, I realize that there are some things that I could have definitely worked further on in regards to really looking at a setup. I was looking at some blueprints recently, and I remember my middle school teacher bringing blueprints in and showing us how to actually create our own dream homes, and actually building what looked like bad art at first, or not bad art, just straight lines. And being able to look at that and see the growth of what a blueprint can be built into, and seeing how sometimes you have contractors now who look at a building program or the concept of even building a structure, and maybe they go about it a little differently. I'm not going to judge or what have you, because I've not been in that position. But what I am looking at is structure. Structure in the building, structure in a family, structure in a classroom, structure in our world. We have to begin from scratch in some cases, because everyone doesn't know what that looks like. When I'm trying to learn a different language, like I took a Chinese workshop before moving out of New York. And in that class, being able to look at language in so many of the alphabets in the Chinese language, it's a lot that goes into everything. But language, one of the things, if we learned our languages, we would be able to communicate a lot more effectively, and we would understand each other much better. There's so many things that we really need to look at as people. I know when we're going to work in the morning and we are trying to get so many things done, it's not so much that we can be overly caught up in so many different things. But when we're looking at the structure of our families, if we don't make the necessary changes today, when will we make them? Again, when I go back to the classroom and I look at children coming to school, some of them better organized than others, some of them with all their school supplies, some with not, with not having the school supplies, and how we have to come together to get everything on point. Management, time management, that has not been my strong point at times. I've gone and taken too much time on certain subject matter than others. The point that I'm trying to make is nobody's perfect. But if we start with one step at a time, if we figure out what our strong points are and what our weak points are, and maybe draw more strength to the weaker points and strengthen those so that we can come together. We as people, we don't know what our children are going through, and they're going through a lot, apparently. And because they're going through so much, maybe we might even have to draw a suggestion box in our homes so that our children can pull from it, or we could pull from where our children are and what they're going through to be able to understand them more. You know, sitting at the table, everyone's not sitting at the table and enjoying a meal together. But if we could do more of that, then we can actually see where our children are, where their heads are, and maybe we can spend more time to help them to understand what's going on. The point that I'm trying to make, and I know it might seem like I'm going around in a circle here, is that we have to take care of home before we can take care of outside matters. If we can't look at what our home life looks like and what our children are going through, how can we actually fix the bigger problems that are going on in our world? We're all being affected by these different things. When we don't sit down and talk to our boys about their pants hanging and sagging down, then what are we going to do? Because if we start from that, their pants sagging and the long-term effects of that, because they're sagging and they're holding their pants up with one hand and holding their books in another hand, when they go to run for that bus in those pants, they lose those pants. And the police officer has to arrest them because the police officer is going to say he pulled his pants down and he flagged someone. And that was not what the child did purposely. But because his pants were sagging, this was the effect of what happened in the end. First of all, the doctors are going to make a lot of money based upon these pants sagging, because they have to balance their pants with their knees and their legs, so they're walking very differently. And the long-term effect of that is going to cause some surgery, some hip surgery, maybe even some knee surgery. We look at things in style sometimes, and we say, oh, that's the style, I'm going to wear that. That's the style, I'm going to look like that. We have a lot of people coming outside wearing pajamas. Okay, but are we, okay, maybe they can do that on a Friday, maybe once a week or what have you, I don't know. But we have to look at long-term effects based upon the basic things that are happening in our lives, in our children's lives. I had a talk recently with a child whose pants were sagging, and they looked as though they were going to fall any minute. And I asked the child, I said, you know, why do you think it's important that you wear your pants like that? You know, just a question. You know, I speak to my high school students when I'm passing, when I'm on my way out, you know. And it's really funny how their perspective is so different from yours. So he said, well, it's, you know, all my friends are doing it, you didn't ask my friends. And I said, well, I would love to ask your friends a question, but I'm asking you because you just happen to be standing here. Well, it's a style. And I said, well, how many styles have to come in for us to make a better choice? What other styles are going to come in? If I tell you to shave your head bald and, you know, and wear a toupee, is that going to be a style? No, I don't want that. I don't even know what a toupee is. I had to explain what a toupee is. Well, you know, he was running a little late for school, so, you know, the conversation ended there, but we had to come across and reconnect. And later on, coming back, I said, you know, I thought about what we talked about, but, you know, I don't know how to reverse it because now everybody done saw my pants hanging down. And I said, well, you can always start fresh. Just like you start a new year. Get a new pair of pants, puts a belt on and tighten the belt this time so it's really fitting. So, but I don't want them all tight. I ain't gonna wear them tight like the girls. And that's fine. Don't wear them tight like the girls. But allow yourself to have a looser pair of pants, but that fit, you know. Next time I saw him, he was actually wearing the same pants, but the belt was fastened around the waist. We're not having these talks with children who are not our own sometimes because we feel like that's the parent's responsibility, or we feel like, the child might be disrespectful. But if you don't try, how will you know? I once had a talk with a kid on the corner when I was in New York. My brother was like, don't do that, because I'm telling you, he might, start acting up, and I'm going to have to step over there. So I did it anyway. I said, young man, could you please change your language, because you're cursing, and I don't think that that's really appropriate. You have parents, you have children walking by. He's like, okay, my bad. I'm sorry, ma'am. My brother was shocked by that behavior. He was shocked that the child actually said what he said, and he was very respectful. Given the chance, our children will be better, but we have to be an extended family member sometimes. It takes a village to raise a child. As the slogan goes, it takes a village to raise up a child. Okay, I forgot who said it, but it was a quote that I've heard over and over again. And in the quote, it's telling you that it's going to take more than just the parents to raise that child. So sometimes just, extend yourself. Sometimes, you can help by just helping, by saying one thing or what have you. Now, I'm not saying that it's your responsibility to go and take the child and raise the child for the parents. That's not what I'm saying. Because that parent has a responsibility and an obligation. God gave that child to that parent or those parents. And he's lent those parents this child until that child is an adult. And that child will grow up, and hopefully that child will be an asset to our society. But we have to look at our children, and we have to reevaluate how we're doing things if our children are not focused and doing the right things. I was on the train recently with some children who were being disrespectful, and the parents hired this aide to come on the train to help and assist. And the aide was helping, but she could not be everywhere. As she was downstairs, the kids were upstairs, and they were acting up as soon as she went downstairs. And I had to say something. And when I said something, the child sat back or what have you. Sometimes people have to realize that it is our full community that is going to sometimes need to step in. It doesn't hurt to help. You're not being disrespectful. You're just lending a hand. And while lending a hand, you're trying to help improve our society. Children think sometimes that nobody cares. This is our way of showing and reflecting that we care. Now, you don't have to do it disrespectfully, like I said. You can always say, hey, how's it going? Maybe refocus the student or child and allow them to see what it looks like by you being a model, by you showing them what looks right. It's not always saying it. Sometimes it's just behaving it. When they see who you are, then they reflect on that. I went into the supermarket, and one of the students said, that's my teacher. And, it's almost like you are a movie star in some cases, because they don't know that you have a life just like they have a life sometimes. We have a job to do in our communities. And it might not seem like it's a big deal to some people. But if we want our children to grow, we want to be a reflection of what we want them to be. We want them to be better. We want them to strive for what it is that they're dreaming of. We want them to be the individuals that we would like to be proud of. And part of that is us lending a hand. So when you see children who might be lost, maybe a child is lost in the train station or lost at the bus stop, and you don't have to, push or what have you. Just say, do you need help? Can I be of service? If they need a police officer, you can be the one to call the police for them. Whatever the case, it's important that we are supporting our communities. Our communities need us because we have different walks of life. We have parents who maybe were parents too soon and they don't know the necessary steps to helping their child. Maybe you can be a mentor of some sort. You know, when I was a social worker, I had a parent, a woman who became a parent, and you know, she needed to. I had to show her how to breastfeed her child. Let's just be honest, okay? And she was like, "You probably don't even have any children." I had to lie. I said, "Yeah, I have children at home," just to get her to just believe in me and to trust me to help her and for her to be able to get to the next step. And she began breastfeeding her son. And you know, things come together better when we are doing something together, when we're working together to deliver a great result. So when we go out in our everyday life, there's going to be certain things that happen, and maybe we can just be a great support to someone or to some child, or you know, even to the stray dog that's walking down the street. You know, maybe he doesn't know where the water fountain in the park is, and you can point it out. Okay, whatever. It's important that we look at our positions, because God is putting us in different positions, and sometimes we really don't know how to react. So when we don't know how to react, we can pray on it and then react, okay? React in a nice, calm manner and try to help, because our community needs us. You know why? Because it is lovely to be in a community of people who are being of service to each other. And it's so lovely being you. Thank you for joining us.